They called it the Flying Fortress. The name implied invincibility. It implied a castle in the sky that nothing could penetrate. But for the 10 men strapped inside, the name was a lie. The reality was much colder. Between 1942 and 1945, the U.S. 8th Air Force lost 4,735 bombers. That is more than 26,000 men. More men died flying over Germany than died in the entire Marine Corps fighting in the Pacific. Today, we look at the machine they trusted with their lives, and we look at the specific German weapons designed to tear it apart. The Boeing B-17 was not fast. It cruised at 180 miles per hour. In the jet stream over Europe, it often felt like it was standing still. But speed was not the point. The point was mass. The Americans developed a formation called the combat box. By stacking planes at different altitudes, they created a wall of machine gun fire. A standard B-17G model bristles with 1350 caliber machine guns. The chin turret, the top turret, the ball turret underneath, the waist gunners, and the tail. When a formation fired together, they threw thousands of rounds per second into the air. It was supposed to be a death zone for any German fighter, but the Germans were learning. Enter the Messerschmitt 109, small, fast, deadly, and its partner, the Focke-Wulf 190. These German pilots quickly realized that attacking a B-17 from the rear was suicide. The tail gunners were too good. So, they changed tactics. They attacked from the front. Imagine sitting in the plexiglass nose of the bomber. You are the bombardier. Suddenly, at 12 o'clock high, you see the blinking lights of 20mm cannons. The closure rate is over 500 miles per hour. You have split seconds to react. The German pilots were aiming for the cockpit and the engines. They knew that if they could kill the pilots or set the fuel on fire, the fortress would fall. But the fighters were only half the problem. The real terror was the flak. The German 88mm anti-aircraft gun was a masterpiece of lethal engineering. Unlike the fighters, you could not shoot back at the flak. You just had to sit there and take it. The shells were fused to explode at your specific altitude. A burst of black smoke meant metal shrapnel was tearing through the thin aluminum skin of your plane. Veterans said you could smell the cordite inside the cabin. If a shell hit the bomb bay, the plane didn't just crash, it disintegrated. Inside the plane, the war was just as brutal. It was not pressurized. At 25,000 feet, the temperature dropped to 60 degrees below zero. If you took your glove off to unjam a gun, you would get frostbite instantly. The air was so thin that without an oxygen mask, you would pass out in 30 seconds. Men didn't just die from bullets. They died because their oxygen lines froze. They died because they bled out in the freezing cold before a medic could reach them over the slippery, shell-casing-covered floor. And yet, the plane was tough. The B-17 could take punishment that would vaporize other aircraft. There are photos of B-17s returning to base with their tails shredded, with engines on fire, with huge holes in the wings. They came back on a wing and a prayer. This durability created a strange bond between the crew and the machine. It rattled, it shook, and it was freezing cold, but it refused to stop flying. When the survivors landed back in England, they were exhausted. They counted the empty bunks in the barracks. They looked at the wrecks on the airfield, planes that had crash-landed with landing gear shot away. They knew they had to get up and do it all again tomorrow. The strategic bombing campaign broke the back of the German industry, but the cost was astronomical. Every single B-17 that took off carried 10 young men, and nearly 5,000 of those planes never came back. That is the brutal reality of the air war. It was not glamorous. It was a meat grinder at 25,000 feet.